All right, let's boldly go where few explainers have gone before, into the truly wild and surprisingly brilliant musical career of the one and only William Shatner. Yeah, Captain Kirk. We're talking about his music.
So when you hear the name William Shatner, what comes to mind? Actor, for sure. Icon, absolutely. But rock star? It just sounds kind of wrong, doesn't it? Well, you might want to buckle up, because his journey in music is one of the most bizarre and fascinating stories in all of pop culture. I mean, look at this. On one side of the coin, you've got the captain of the Starship Enterprise, a legend of the screen. And on the other, a spoken word artist who eventually became a critically acclaimed musician. This isn't some alternate reality. It's the same guy. So the real question is, how on earth did this happen?
Okay, so our story starts way back in 1968. Shatner releases his very first album, and it's called The Transformed Man. And let me tell you, that title was no exaggeration. This thing was something else.
So get this, the whole concept was totally audacious. Shatner, who's a classically trained Shakespearean actor, thought, you know what, I'm going to take these serious classic monologues and mash them up with dramatic readings of pop songs. We're talking Bob Dylan, the Beatles, all done as spoken word over a giant symphony. It was this earnest and kind of weird collision of high art and pop culture. And if you want the perfect example of the style, just listen to the climax of the album, where he's just screaming, backed by this booming orchestra, "Mr. Tambourine Man!" It was so incredibly over the top that it became instantly infamous. So why did people find this so funny when he was being so serious? Well, it pretty much boils down to something called the incongruity theory. See, a lot of humor comes from smashing two things together that just do not belong. In this case, you have the ultra-serious, dramatic delivery of a Shakespearean actor applied to what, at the time, people thought of as these light, fun pop songs. That clashing of expectations is exactly what made it an accidental comedy classic. So if the transformed man lit the fuse on this whole thing, his next big musical moment launched him into the stratosphere as a full-blown pop culture punchline. Right, so fast forward 10 years to 1978. Shatner's hosting the Science Fiction Film Awards, and for his big showstopper, he performs Elton John's Rocket Man. The performance was just bonkers. You had 3 different Shatners on screen, thanks to some very 70s special effects, all dramatically reciting the lyrics. It literally became a meme before memes were even a thing, cementing his musical reputation as a joke for decades. And for a long, long time, that's kind of where the story ended. William Shatner's music was a funny bit, a novelty. But then, an unlikely hero enters the story, a musician and producer named Ben Folds, who decided it was time to take Shatner's music seriously. Think about this for a second. A full 36 years went by between his first album, which just confused everyone, and his big comeback. That's a huge, huge gap. So what did Ben Folds do? What was the secret sauce that turned a musical punchline into a piece of critically acclaimed art? Well, Folds had a brilliant 3-step plan. First, and this is crucial, he didn't try to make Shatner sing. He said, no, that spoken word thing you do, that's your strength. Let's lean into it. Second, he got Shatner to co-write really personal, honest lyrics, making the whole thing feel sincere. And third, he brought in an army of incredible, respected musicians to give the project real artistic weight. And the result of all this? An album that completely shocked the music world. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't campy. It was actually genuinely good. The album was called Has Been. I mean, what a perfect title, right? But instead of being the final nail in the coffin, it completely blew that label to pieces. This was a serious, powerful piece of art, and it forced everyone, critics, fans, everybody, to totally rethink what they thought they knew about William Shatner, the musician. And just look at the people Ben Folds brought in to help. We're talking about new wave legend Joe Jackson, indie icon Aimee Mann, punk rock titan Henry Rollins, country superstar Brad Paisley. The list just goes on. This wasn't some silly side project. This was an all-star team taking Shatner's vision very, very seriously. The track that really blew everyone's minds was his cover of the Britpop anthem Common People. With Joe Jackson singing the chorus, Shatner turned this song about class tourism into this powerful, angry, and deeply personal rant. It was a massive critical hit and introduced a whole new generation to that amazing song. And this quote from Joe Jackson just nails why Has Been worked so well. The big difference this time around was self-awareness.
The music was serious, the art was real, but it also had this little wink, acknowledging how absurd the whole thing was. Shatner was finally in on the joke, and you know what? That made all the difference.
So, in the end, Has Been wasn't some one-off fluke. It was the moment William Shatner finally found his true musical voice, and he hasn't stopped exploring since. I mean, the guy has been incredibly busy since 2004. He released Seeking Major Tom, a whole double album of space-themed rock songs. Then he did Ponder the Mystery, which is a full-on prog rock concept album. He's even done a Christmas album called Shatner Claus. He's not just dipping his toe in, he's diving headfirst into whole genres.
He basically took what everyone thought was his biggest weakness, the fact that he couldn't sing in a traditional way, and he turned it into his greatest artistic strength. It's an amazing lesson in reinvention, proving that you can always change the story by just creating a category that's all your own. So what's the final verdict? Is it all just an elaborate joke, or is it the work of a truly unique genius? His musical career boldly went where no career has gone before, and what he left behind is a universe of music all its own. The real question is, what are you going to discover when you give it a listen?